everyone. Thank you for joining me on this live stream. I rarely live stream, so I'm kind of excited to talk to who I'm going to talk to today. I think I have some excellent guests standing by. But just before we get started, I'll just remind people, if you don't know me, I worked for Global News for 20 years. I guess it's important to remind people, and that when the COVID narrative was going on and all the reporting that we weren't doing, when I drew that to the network's attention, first I got disciplined, then I got suspended, and eventually, long story short, I got fired. So I was sort of on the inside. I'm probably one of the only whistleblowers in Canada who was fired from network news. And today I proudly wear that as a badge of honor, because I don't think, in this game, if you haven't been fired yet, you ain't doing the right thing, I gotta say. But what I want to talk about today is things are really bubbling up in Canada and in the US and worldwide, particularly politically, and everybody can feel it. We've just had it. We've been through it. We've had it. It seems like we've overcome something, and then we just keep getting oppressed and put down again and again with policies, with inflation, with carbon tax. I mean, you name it. And now I think things are just bubbling over. So we're going to talk about the US, we're going to talk about Canada, we're going to talk about the UK, but we're going to start with Canada. And I've got two guests. I'm going to bring the guests in now, and then I'm going to introduce them. Okay, first of all, Mr. Tom Marazzo. Can you see him there? Hello, Tom. He's here. And then I've got Eddie Cornell. Hello, Eddie. Okay, so here's the three of us. Let me just introduce Tom Marazzo, a fired college teacher who believes in informed consent, and he's a retired Army officer as well, and the author of the People's Emergency Act Freedom Convoy 2022. You can get that on Amazon. And Mr. Eddie Cornell, Veterans for Freedom co-founder, and he helped successfully sue the government for the Emergencies Act and freezing of the bank accounts. And might I remind the audience that Eddie Cornell had his bank account frozen. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks. Hope everyone can hear me okay.
Oh, thanks, Anita. Nice to be here.
Yeah. We hear you. We see you. It's looking good so far. Before we get into what we're going to talk about today, this live stream, we're going to be here for a little while talking. So I invite the viewers to comment if you can, and if I can pull them up. I always love hearing from the viewers. But can we just, before we get into it, can we walk down memory lane just a little bit? Tom, during the convoy, I remember that you would call all these press conferences, right? And no one would show up. And I remember being fired, watching all the empty chairs, and there you were with the doctors and everything, and just exasperated that nobody came to even talk. I never had seen anything like it at the time. Can you just tell me, what did you make of that when you called the press conferences and nobody came?
Yeah, well, I can remember one very specific press conference, and it was, I think, on the second last day or the last day. And it's interesting because there was a couple of media people there, one of them being Andrew Lawton, which was really encouraging that Andrew was there, and he was, sitting in the front row. And he was sitting beside I don't know what you would want to call the guy, kind of media. I'd never seen the guy before, didn't know who he was. I know who he is now, and I'm not going to say his name because I'm not a fan. And I usually don't mention people that I'm not a fan of. I don't want to give them, any wind in their sails. But it was discouraging after this press conference because, he was sitting in the front row the whole entire time on his Twitter account, just lighting me up viciously during the entire time. Yeah. It's funny, and I'll give a hint to the viewers. His first name is Justin, but I saw him in the media this week, and it was funny because right behind him, on the bookshelf behind him, was a copy of Pierre Poilievre's book, which I thought was really, really interesting to me. That somebody who was viciously attacking the convoy's existence or reason for even existing, and was actually asking me really stupid questions. During that final press conference, seems to be firmly now in the camp of the Conservative Party of Canada. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Oh, that is interesting. That is interesting. Yes, and it was just so frustrating. Oh my God. Isn't anyone going to talk to us? All of Canada has landed in Ottawa, and you're not going to come and talk to us? It was shocking. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we did have Glenn McGregor at the time. I think he worked for Global. He's since been let go, and he actually came to one of the press conferences. And this is really important because there was a golden opportunity for the legacy media to get in there during one of the press conferences with former Premier Brian Peckford.
Mm-hmm.
And, so the audience knows Premier Peckford is the last living member of
Mm-hmm.
Canadian society that was one of the 10 people that signed the Charter of Rights and Freedoms as
Yeah.
the Premier of Newfoundland.
Yeah.
So he did a joint press conference with him and Tamara Leach, and Glenn McGregor of Global was there.
Yeah.
And all this guy did was basically viciously attack the convoy. He didn't address anything about what the purpose of the press conference was.
Yeah.
He basically took a man of that stature, that legacy,
Yeah.
didn't even know who he was, to be perfectly blunt about it. Took that man, and in that moment had a golden opportunity to actually do journalism, and he chose to do paparazzi style hit piece in terms of reporting. I had actually said to him during that
Mm-hmm.
thing, if you don't behave, I'm actually going to have security of the hotel come in and remove you from the building. And he got on his Twitter and basically tweeted about it. And the funny thing is, he didn't even come close to spelling my name right or getting my name even proper. I'm like,
Oh God.
you're supposed to be a journalist, and
Journalist.
you're writing about somebody, you don't even get their name right. I mean, my name was, by then, he could have done a real quick Google search, but he chose not to, right? Like, sloppy, just sloppy,
just
right?
very
And
sloppy, like you don't
ill-informed.
care. It doesn't matter. You
You
still
don't
get
care.
your paycheck anyway, but that was
Yeah.
awful. And I know
Yeah.
that Eddie, your bank account was frozen. I had interviewed you before, and I never, oh, that broke my heart. What are your memories of that time during the convoy? Probably lots.
Yeah, quite a few. And by the way, Tom's accounts were frozen as well. So
Oh,
yeah,
Tom,
it was a
didn't
pretty
realize
traumatic
that.
event. Yeah.
Oh, I think I had heard. Oh, you're reminding me. Gosh. Because I
Yeah,
remember
so
when they brought the horses, threw everybody out, you were telling me, Eddie, that you had gone to a gas station. You're like, my card doesn't work, right?
Mhm.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And if it
they
wasn't,
wouldn't take
yeah,
cash.
go ahead.
They wouldn't take cash. So it was, when I was traveling home, traveling through Quebec, because I live on the East Coast, gas stations wouldn't take cash. It was credit card or debit only. So it was a real challenge getting there, getting back home. And
Yeah.
just to what Tom was saying before with Brian Peckford, as you know, Tom and I are co-founders to Veterans for Freedom. We're lucky enough to have Brian Peckford as our honorary colonel with V4F. So that's quite an honor for our organization to have a man of his stature supporting our organization. It's great.
Yeah, well, I was really very disappointed in the media in that when he was speaking out and we couldn't even clip him. We wouldn't even put a 30-second clip of him on the air, or we wouldn't even probably return his phone calls. Like, I can't believe it. I just can't believe it now. But anyway, moving on, maybe that's a good segue to where we're at today, because that's how the media was during that time for whatever reason. Then we've come to learn the media was bought and they had all the buyout. And I mean, how it all probably comes down in taxes and all kinds of dealings that we don't know about. But now the media is chirping up and speaking up. Where were they back then? Where were they? There's all of a sudden being tough now. I don't understand it. Maybe it's because it's not about health. Do you think there's something to that? Like,
yeah, it's like politicians and the media. They only poke their head up when it's safe to do so. They don't do it when there's risk involved at all. So
they didn't.
No.
And now they're all guns blazing. Where were they when we needed them? But that brings me to what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so maybe we can start with some things. Let's start with that by-election, the Toronto St. Paul by-election, and losing that. Now, I'm over here on the West Coast, and I don't pay attention. I would say that people don't pay attention that much to these things, but they sure as heck paid attention to this one because it was such a big loss. Like, Eddie, were you surprised by that loss?
No, I mean, people are fed up with this government and Trudeau and the Liberal Party in general. To have such a devastating blow is, I think, going to be the precursor of what's to come. So
right.
I think this is very telling.
And Tom, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it was just a big giant foreshadowing of what's to come for the next federal election. I think the Liberals are going to be very, very decisively defeated in the next election. My concern, though, uh, when that happens, is not so much because I do, unfortunately, I believe it's going to be a foregone conclusion that the Conservative Party of Canada is going to form the government. My concern that I never hear anyone talk about is who's going to form the official opposition.
That was one of my questions. First of all, to lose that, I mean, much has been made about losing that. You can't go wrong. The Liberals can't go wrong in that riding, and they did, which obviously shows you like we've had enough. Enough is enough. But questions come up as who could lead the Liberal Party? Who would be the leader? I can't think of a single name. And normally you think of the deputy. Well, she is equally as disliked. Like, why do you think, okay, she's Christopher Phelan's chances?
Mm-hmm. No, nothing. She's too toxic. She's a bit radioactive in terms of the overall the damage. I mean, this is a joint effort, right?
Yeah.
The you're going to see probably. I'd be shocked if Singh keeps his seat. I'd be shocked if Freeland and definitely Trudeau. I don't think most of the cabinet for the Liberals are going to keep their seat. And that's very wishful thinking on my part as well, but I'd be very, very shocked to see that outcome where any of those people even get reelected.
Mm-hmm.
So, there has been a rumor, and I first heard this rumor from Tanya Granick Allen, and she's a really good friend, political junkie here in Ontario. She was years ago vying for the leadership of the Ontario Conservative Party, but it fell to Doug Ford. And a year ago, she had told me that it's probably going to be Mark Carney that takes over the Liberal Party.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I think it's going to be an attempt to get the Liberal stink off of the Liberals.
Mm-hmm.
And to say there's new management. Because, I mean, let's face it, the country doesn't necessarily view Justin Trudeau as a very he's not an intellectual, he's not somebody that we
thought he
look
was
to
smart
as,
in the beginning, like 9 years ago.
As a good actor, he can fool you into believing that he's anything, right? And so when we look at Trudeau, we know that he's not the brightest knife in the drawer or the sharpest knife in the drawer. Mm-hmm. Look at me calling somebody stupid and yet saying something stupid. But anyway, so we don't, when we look at somebody like Carney, his whole image is completely different. And I think going forward, they're going to maybe take a risk and put Carney in there to say, like, this is a whole new style of leadership. This is a whole new mentality. I mean, Carney's got a PhD in economics, right? He's been the governor of the Bank of Canada, the governor of Bank of England. The downside to him is he's very, very heavily involved in the World Economic Forum. And he is a globalist.
Who isn't? Yeah,
exactly.
That's who you think might take over. But don't you think, like Eddie, that there's too much stink on the Liberal Party? There's too much taint. Who's going to want to step up and take that job? And who do you foresee even doing that?
Well, my hope is that Trudeau stays on right to the bitter end. He seems like he's the type of person that's not going to throw in the towel. He's just going to stay to the bitter end. And, if they brought Mark Carney in, he's a pretty smart guy. He's Trudeau on steroids, really, when it comes to the WEF and so on. So, if Trudeau steps down this summer, it gives them just over a year to rebrand the Liberals, and they'll throw everything they can to try to make the public come back into their fold. So my hope is that Trudeau, being the narcissist that he is, that he just does not relinquish his role as prime minister.
Right, like he won't step down, right, Tom?
Well, I totally agree with Eddie. I'm sure we'll get into the debate with Biden and Trump the other day, but it's the same sort of dynamic. Like I want Trudeau to actually stay until he gets his ass literally handed to him
Yeah.
in the most humiliating fashion known in politics. Like
Right.
I want to see him lose, and I want it to be very decisive, and I want him to, he came into the prime minister's office on a really big high, and I want to see him basically get annihilated and defeated on the battlefield. I'm happy to see that. And I
Yeah.
agree with I totally agree with Eddie in terms of Mark Carney. There's a long time. There's many months. There's over a year, close to a year and a half before the
Too
next
long.
election.
Yeah.
Right. And Mark Carney. So then a big concern for the public is always the economy. Now you're going to put an economist into that position, right?
Right.
So you want to be very careful. So I think the Liberals are definitely doing all of the calculus on this, every outcome, every scenario to this, to say if we put Carney in here, it's to really rebrand the Liberals. And so
Well, they
if
got
there's
to start
any hope,
now. They
do
have
have to
to,
start
like,
now.
I mean, how if Trudeau stays on until September next year, I mean, what are they going to do? Groom Carney in the meantime, or pump him up? I
No.
mean, like, no, he's
No.
not even going to be on anyone's radar. Carney.
No, what'll happen is when they take Trudeau. Sorry, Americans. When they take Trudeau to the finish line, and they're decisively beaten, and probably the Bloc Québécois take over as the official opposition, you're going to just see, it'll be the analogy from sports, right? It's going to be a rebuilding year. The Liberals will suck back, and they're going to do a leadership convention, pick a new leader, and take the next 4 to 5 years to say that Pierre Poilievre is, the second coming of, the devil.
Yes, but it's going to take 4 to 5 years. So
Yes,
they have to go away with their tail between their legs for a really long time, because I think this is in the bag. And part of me feels like whatever happened with COVID, which I'll try not, like they already have written the story. And I feel like the story is written, and we already know it's going to be Pierre Poilievre. So who's ever pulling the strings has already pulled this string, right? I feel like that. But before we talk about him a little bit more, I want to know, Eddie, other than Mark Carney, can you think of one other person that could lead the Liberal Party? Give me one.
I can't think of one.
Me neither.
No. Look at the corruption that's within the Liberal Party. I just read a report that possibly 50 government officials are now compromised Chinese assets in this country. And, the 11 MPs for the NSICOP report. I mean, this government is corrupt to the core, and they've squandered our hard-earned tax dollars and given it away to everybody else in the world except for benefiting of Canadians. So they deserve everything they get.
Right. Okay, so yeah. That brings us to so many issues, right? But okay, first of all, Trudeau, every time there's a House of Commons meeting or a press conference or whatever, he says the same things all the time. Do you not find this embarrassing? But let's break down the things that he says. He always goes, conservatives don't care about the dental plan. The dental plan. It took you 9 years to come up with a dental plan, and some dentists aren't even signed up to this plan. Okay. The other thing he says is the school food program. There is no food in the school food program because that hasn't started yet. But yet that has so much funding. They talk about housing, and they say we got to build more houses. What? Build more houses that no one can afford to live in, and green jobs. Okay.
But that's true.
Seen any of these things surface? Like, tell me what you think. And they say this again and again, and aren't they embarrassed? Okay, what do you think?
Well, everything has been a complete failure that they've tried to institute. Think about it. They're bringing 1.5 million migrants in per year, and the maximum we can build at this point is 200,000 homes per year. Somehow that's not going to work out. So let alone the infrastructure, as far as hospitals and education and everything else that goes along with it. Look at the school program. Nothing's been instituted. Complete failure. Everything they touch, including, the ArriveCan app, every single thing that they have funded has been a complete corrupt disaster.
Yeah. millions of dollars going into things that don't see the light of day. And what do you think, Tom? Out of all the things that I mentioned, the dental care, the food program with no food, and the housing and the green action, what is the thing that irritates you the most about what they say?
Well, I think that what really, really, really irritates me of all these things when you put them together is that they're just a bunch of Hail Marys. They're just trying to throw a whole bunch of stuff at the wall, see whatever sticks with voters, what resonates with a voter, right? This is, to go to your point, like, what have you done in 9 years? All of a sudden, in an election year, you're going to make all these new promises. And when you talk about the things that Justin Trudeau just repeats over and over and over, one of the lines he likes to use is, we haven't done enough. We've still got more work to do. Well, after 9 years, you haven't finished the first thing that you started 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Now you're going to come up with a whole new laundry list, a different honey-do list for the voters.
Yeah.
To try to bribe people coming in. Okay. I think most people, even on the liberal side, have become so disillusioned with the liberals that they see through all the BS. They see through the lies that they're being told, that the liberals are not going to, as they say, deliver, right? Because they always talk about delivering, yet in 9 years they haven't delivered on very much. Like, look at the state of the economy, look at the state of housing, look at the state of the military. Look at the state of just the homelessness in this country.
The lack of housing, the costs. Like, they have been rattling on in the House of Commons about, can you give Canadians a break on the bloody carbon tax for the summer? Yeah. Why do you think they don't relinquish that? Why do you think they don't give back? Just say, okay, we'll give you a break. Why do they push so strong on this? People would like them more if they just said, okay, listen, Canadians, that would go a long way. We'll give you a break. Throw us a bone. Eddie, why do you think they don't pull back on this?
Because they're out of money. They have no money. What? So they need it desperately. They have spent us into oblivion in this country. And Canadians are taxed to the complete max and beyond at this point. So, it's only going to get worse under this this government. They are out of control, and people are starting to feel it badly now.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah. I totally agree with Eddie. They're out of money, and this is always it's a big scheme that every government, doesn't matter, conservative, liberal, whatever you are, there's always some new tax idea, some new tax grab, because the banks are addicted to borrowing. They're addicted to deficit budgets and all this deficit spending. So they need the money. I mean, let's just look at the facts alone. Trudeau has spent more money than all of the previous prime ministers of Canada combined. Okay. So you know what that means? And let me break this down for you. Before COVID, okay, just if you were a resident of Ontario, every hour of every day in Ontario, you were responsible for about $1.5 million per hour in interest payments back to the banks. Okay. Federally, it was $3 million an hour. So if you're an Ontario resident, you had $4.5 million every single hour going from your tax towards this pot of money to pay back lending institutions. Okay. We have the Bank of Canada. And by the way, up until Trudeau Sr. was the Prime Minister of Canada, we actually got money from our own Bank of Canada almost at interest free. We didn't have this debt until Trudeau Sr. showed up on the scene. And now we're $1 trillion in debt. Okay. Trudeau has doubled he's doubled the national debt. Okay. So now he doesn't have to pay that money back. You and I do, and Eddie does, and Eddie's great grandchildren are still going to be paying back for the war in Ukraine, because the Ukrainians are never going to pay back the now $15 billion worth of financial aid, military hardware, and weapons and ammunition that the taxpayers have been ordered basically to give to Ukraine. So here's the thing, and I love the saying, if your country is giving away money to another country, then you are collecting too much taxes from your own country.
Or robbing us. Yeah, you're
We're robbing
absolutely
us.
right. We give all that money there, yet we cannot provide a wheelchair for a person who is disabled by the you know what. That person
Yep.
has to raise their own funds. We don't have in Vancouver, there's a we give everybody fentanyl here all the time, right? And we have a massive drug problem on the downtown east side. And there's a story that just went around that the one bathroom or the two bathrooms that people have to relieve themselves, we have to close those down because we don't have enough money in the budget for a toilet. But you have trillions of dollars to send. What do you do with our money? Where does it go? And people are absolutely sick of this. And okay, we're going to get into some other things here. Let's just Trudeau actually spoke, and if I can pull this clip up and share it with everybody, I will. He, because he's been avoiding everybody. Let's hear what he had to say here.
For an urgent in-person meeting of all MPs, why are you refusing? And do we interpret from that you don't care what they have to say?
Listen, let's be very clear. Last week's by-election loss, not to sugarcoat it, was challenging. Was something we need to take seriously, and we've been engaged in lots of important conversations. I've had lots of calls with different members of caucus from across the country, not just in the GTA, to talk about how we make sure we're continuing our work connecting with Canadians, to make sure we're continuing to deliver for people. There are, as always, a range of perspectives and voices within the Liberal Party, and listening to all those voices and giving them all time to engage is really, really important. And that's what we've been doing, what I'm going to continue to do while we stay focused on delivering for Canadians.
Okay, do you think what do you get out of that? Do you think he listens to Canadians? Do you think he listens to the backbenchers?
No.
What? Tell me what you think.
Think about it. He never accepts personal responsibility. It's always we. He puts it out amongst all of the people. It's never I am responsible for this or that. He downplays it and basically puts the blame for things on everyone else.
But it's so bad that people in his own party are criticizing him now. This is how bad it is, right?
It's almost a mutiny, I can tell you.
It's almost a mutiny. Yeah.
I think it seems like it's a mutiny. But I think there's a suspicious part of me that says that after 9 years, finally, Liberal members of Parliament are finding their spines. There's a certain element to me. I'm suspicious. I think that it's a bit orchestrated, that certain ones have been speaking out. Like the one that just spoke out recently and penned that letter and sent it out. He's not running for re-election.
Is that or somebody else? Yeah,
somebody from out east. Yeah, he's not running again.
From New Brunswick.
Yeah, and he's not running again, right? So it's low risk for him, and I mean, it gives the appearance that hey, there's some dissension in the ranks, but and that could be very well the case, but I don't think that he is going to step down. I would be surprised if he did, because like Eddie says, he doesn't take personal responsibility. And if you look at his senior people within his cabinet or his ministers, who's he going to turn to? The entire government is corrupt, and the entire public can't stand the senior Liberal cabinet. The cabinet ministers are hated and loathed by Canadians. So
absolutely, but
where's he going to go?
Where is he going to go? Like the whole gang, nobody likes. I'm not fond of Anita Anand. I just don't trust her. I don't like her. No. I don't like nobody likes Chrystia Freeland. Nobody likes Mark Holland. Nobody likes these people, right? But let's turn to some of the news, because also another thing is Trudeau won't be at the Stampede. Do you think that's a big deal, or what do you think?
I think he's last year more occupied with gay pride. So.
He's got to be down with that.
He's got previous engagements to take care of, I think.
Yeah,
that's true. He doesn't want to mess with the Cowboys. He's off dancing with the trans. Well, it's okay. You know that.
broke back.
He is all broke back. That's for sure. So, what do you think of the NSICOP thing? They always talk about foreign interference. What do you think that means, and why do we? I don't know. What is your take on what happened there? Like, who do you think was involved, and what type of intelligence do you think might have been compromised? I really don't know the answer to this. I don't know enough about it. But they say, oh well, India, they traded things with India, traded things with China, and that story's gone out of the news cycle. So you have these corrupt people doing whatever, and then there's no consequences again. What was your take on some of that Ensicott stuff? If you want to weigh in on it,
Go
Tom.
ahead,
Tom.
Eddie.
Oh, Eddie, yeah.
Okay, you want me? Yeah. Eddie,
Anybody.
you're up.
It's complicated because we
It
don't know
is.
enough about it.
Well, if you follow the money, that tells a big part of the story.
Yeah.
And they're trying to cover their tracks to, hide where the money came from and where it went. And, that to me is where you start to look.
It's just something I never even heard of before, Ensicott, and all of a sudden when that goes in the news cycle, I feel like it's just, you want me to know this. Like, I can tell you, nobody puts things in the news that they don't want you to know, like they or want you to think, right? So I have to say that I have a lot of what I call normies in my life. I work with a lot of normal people, and I was making a joke with someone else about Chrystia Freeland's voice, how she goes, dear Mr. Speaker, the way she does that. And we were having a good laugh about it. And this lady I work with was like, oh, who's Chrystia Freeland? Like this,
Wow.
this that's pretty bad, eh? And then my best friend works in an insurance office, and I said, okay, tell me, what do your normal coworkers think about who they might vote for? And they all were like, well, I don't know anybody. Like, who else is there? I guess it's gonna be Trudeau. So these are normal people, but people like you and me just know that can't happen. But this whole idea of Polyev, he's got it in the bag, and my people close to me don't trust this either. What do you make of Polyev? Do you trust him? Do you feel that he has denounced the WEF? He says all the right things. I like him. Is there something I should be wary of?
I'm not really a big fan of Polyev myself.
Okay, neither is my partner. What do you think about him?
Well, look at some of the things he avoids speaking about. That should tell you a lot.
Right.
There's very serious issues in many areas in this country, and it's axe the tax. But there's other very significant issues they totally ignore. So I think he's an opportunist myself, and he only comes around for the photo op. And he, like I said earlier, he pokes his head up when it's safe to do so.
Right. What do you think of Pierre, Tom?
I think he's very entertaining, engaging to watch. He's been a member of parliament since he's 24 years old. He doesn't have any advanced degrees. He has very little leadership. He's never been, started his own company. He's never been the head of a company. He's never been the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And yet we're about to hand him the keys to the entire country. Right. And let's remember why Pierre Polyev is as famous as he is. He was exceptionally good at cross-examining or questioning Justin Trudeau about 3 years ago on finances. When he was the finance critic. He was exceptionally good at that. He became a household name, which is what I believe why Aaron O'Toole kicked him out of that position as the critic for finance, because he had more social media followers because of the way he kicked Justin Trudeau's ass around questions than the entire Conservative Party. Right. So he became a threat. He became a threat to Aaron O'Toole. But as entertaining as he is, and as articulate as he is, and fun to watch, and question period and things like that. Where's the substance? Where's the breadth of experience? He's been a politician since he was 24 years old. Okay, that's what he's done. How big of a staff has he had to lead his own office, right? Yes, he knows his way around politics. Yes, he knows his way around maneuvering and manipulating people. But at the end of the day, you don't rise to those lofty heights in government unless you're really, really good at the game of Survivor. Okay? So that's really what his whole career has been about, is winning the $1 million at the end of Survival and going off the track. That's what we're at with him, right?
That's a good analogy. That's because you have to play it smart, because he's not going to be the next prime minister if he doesn't play it smart. So he maybe when we needed him to speak up about the things that the convoy was about, I didn't hear too much from him then, although I hope that he is anti-mandate.
Well,
because we still have mandates in BC for the nurses.
Yeah, and so when I let's say inside the political sphere, inside his own party, inside of politics, he's probably pretty gifted, especially if he's gotten to the leadership of the party. Outside of that, what is he doing for Canada?
I want to know. I want him to cultivate oil and gas, like he says.
Yeah, he's definitely he's for the war he's supporting Ukraine. Okay, so he's all for funding that war and getting us all caught up in World War III. And hey, all the power to you if you're going to be the first one off the helicopter onto the battlefield. And when it comes time to start talking about conscription for World War III, you better be putting your skin in the game and your family members in the game before you start knocking on the door, pulling my kids to go to this war that you can't use your words to stop.
You know, and let me remind the audience watching, you two are two veterans, okay? And you know, you guys know about the military and the consequences of that, and probably seen things that we haven't seen. But I have two sons, two teenage sons, and I don't want to send my sons or my daughters to go fight in some bullshit war for nothing. I mean, ever since I became awake, I now realize that the wars and the things that we were fighting for are just hogwash. We are fighting for political political pawns or false ideology as to why war got started. Wasn't it the Franz Ferdinand, the World War I, and somebody's, oh god, I'm not really remembering this right, but we went to war because, right? Because we go to war for the most ridiculous things, right? And I don't want my sons or daughters to die for that. And this, yes, he does support Ukraine, which is enough. We have to look after our own. We've given you plenty. Stop asking for more, right? Just on a side note, in terms of the military, do we have do we have a strong military at the moment, or is it weak? Or what can you what can you tell my layman, or not me as a layman, about the military today? Do we have the best of the best equipment and fighters, or what do we have?
We're starting a rainbow army.
Oh, meaning,
it's all about diversity, equity, and inclusive.
Let me say this, okay? This is the honest to God truth. If I were Russia and I knew the Canadians were coming and were, involved in Ukraine, and I knew where they were, I can guarantee you the first thing that I would do was fly all my aircraft over the Canadian position and drop tampons on every last one of them. And you know why I say that? Because think about how demoralized the Canadian military would be if their enemy was now making fun of them and dropping tampons on their position.
Yeah.
How humiliating would that be? I would do it. And I know it sounds ridiculous. I know it sounds funny, but I would do it as a psychological impact on the Canadians to lower their morale. Morale is a principle of war. And to disrupt the Canadian morale, I would be doing stuff like that. I'd be humiliating those Canadian soldiers. And why? Because the Canadian government started it. They're the ones who are doing it first. On every single Canadian Forces base across Canada, in the men's washrooms, there are now tampons.
What?
Yes.
Wait a minute.
By the way, BMO has the same policy.
Wait a minute.
BMO did. Yeah.
Say that again. What did you just say? Can you say that again? I'm taking you full frame. Say it again.
Okay. In every Canadian Forces, naval, army, and air base across Canada, in the men's washrooms, there are now free tampons and tampon dispensers for transgender men.
God.
Transgender men in uniform. This is a thing that they did a couple of months ago, and it's had nothing but a detrimental effect to the morale of members of the Canadian Armed Forces. And so, if maybe I should have started with that, but that's why I'm saying if I was Putin, I'd be telling my military, go airdrop tampons in the
It's
Canadian
raining
military.
tampons. I did
Yeah.
not know that. I did not know that. Oh my gosh. And another thing though about that is what do we say about that? When you've had a bunch of surgeries and you're recovering, you have stitches, you're not healthy. Think about how you feel even if you've had a knee operation or something,
Mhm.
right? Never mind if you've had multiple surgeries to fashion different anatomy or to do things or different hormonal changes. You are not going to be the strong man you need to be. You're not going to be the strong woman you need to be. And I didn't know about, like, listen, I'm a middle-aged woman. My whole life, you've always had to bring your own tampons and your own products. Nobody ever gave me that, right? And if you didn't have a quarter for the machine, you were out of luck. And now men have them in the bathrooms.
Yes.
It's emasculating.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's a huge pushback against that because real women don't want that. I mean, in your day, Eddie, what would you do if you saw a tampon machine in the bathroom?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the military, and basically everyone that I served with were alpha males, and there is no way that dispenser would have survived one day. That's all I could say.
I think you guys would have ripped it off the wall and said, no, thank you. Men do not have periods. I
Yeah.
mean,
Or, I mean, from what I hear, the men are taking them home and giving them to their wives.
okay, well,
Yeah,
I
that's
guess
what I hear too.
hey, listen, inflation is high. Okay, so
Yeah.
these things cost money. Okay, and then just I guess on another thing before that was fascinating. I didn't know that. But one more thing about an election, right? One more thing about the pensions. Have you heard about the pensions that if an election gets pushed back in 2025 in Canada a week, that means that all parties could collect their pensions or whatever. So maybe that's a way for Trudeau to say, hey, you don't want me to step down. You want your pension? We gotta ride this one out. And I think in April 2025, all Liberals will get their pension. I don't know what this all means, but do you have
Yeah. Well, it's
the
6
date
years.
matters.
Yeah, the date does matter. The date does matter, but you need to be an active member of parliament for 6 consecutive years to qualify for a 6-figure pension. Whereas Eddie and I did over 20 years in the military to get, 2% a year of time served. So if you did 25 years, you get 50% of your pay, right? For 25 years. But if you're a member of parliament, and here's even something a little bit more sinister to this, okay? During COVID and the lockdowns, members of parliament didn't have to go to work. They didn't have to buy new suits or new clothing. And in some cases, a couple of members of parliament didn't even bother to wear clothes on live streams and got caught multiple times.
Yes.
Right. So they weren't paying for outings for lunch. They weren't paying for fuel. They weren't paying for clothing and stuff like that. But not this April that just passed, but the previous April to that, the entire federal, all the members of parliament got a 20% pay raise. 20% they gave themselves. And then the following April that just passed, they also gave them another annual increase to their salaries. Okay. So, I mean, we're looking at these people making an exceptional amount of money. Did you ever hear of any government workers during any of the lockdowns and the firings really lose their jobs? No. The rest of us did.
Yeah.
Somehow COVID, because in a lot of cases they got exemptions. But COVID was so bloody smart that it knew based on your employment to leave you alone. Right? That's how clever it was. And it knew not to go after politicians.
Oh, funny.
Right.
Okay, so So speaking of, one other thing, as COVID also knows about the borders, doesn't it? It knows that it's gonna filter right into BC, but not Alberta. One other thing about we're talking about Canadian politics, it seems like politics all around the world. It just seems like everybody has some sort of affiliation with the WEF, whether you know about it or not. And I used to sort of not pay attention to that because I just thought, well, maybe this is all just. Maybe that's not really what it is, but it seems like that's what it is because I had to do some research on the WEF for another podcast. And basically, Every year, they go and they find these young global leaders around the world. They've been doing this since they started. If you're 40 and under and an up and comer, they get you, they want you, they come into, and then you go into a program with them and you embark on a 3-year transformational journey. So what is that about? And what they do is they go around the world and they find people to put in the WEF who are from the corporate sector, from the public sector, civil leaders, social entrepreneurs, from academia, artists, athletes, cultural leaders, and from the media. So that, I think, is why the whole world went nuts when COVID happened, is they had snagged everybody to be on Team WEF. And sometimes, you know, you hear people's name come up. Here, Christy Clark, she's a politician, was a broadcaster. I used to work with her. Her name came up to run. And then somebody sent me a Google page she was part of the WEF. Kevin Falcon is part of the WEF. The WEF is very connected with the UN and this Agenda 2030. So as much as I don't want to conceive that this is the path we're going on, it seems to be that the current people in power want to take us on this path of poverty, of owning nothing, of scratching around until we become so desperate. That's what I feel this agenda is about. Do you think I'm on the right track? It's true, isn't it? And that's why everybody's uprising so much. What do you think about that?
It's clearly a deliberate grooming process that the WEF does, right? I mean, they're training a large pool of up and comers, like you said, hoping that, you know, the cream will rise to the top, and you're going to get somebody like Justin Trudeau, who I think is a graduate. John Baird, I think, is a graduate. Freeland is very, very tied to the.
She's on the Treasury board, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, Mark Carney is a big deal inside the WEF. Now, it's important to understand about this that it's not just for politicians. You know, it's the same grooming process that happens out there in industry. So every year when they meet in Davos, it's not just a bunch of politicians that descend. It's people from all different financial industries in basically, you know, the senior leadership of a lot of the Fortune 500 companies, media, social media, like all these titans in their industries all convene in Davos. And they're probably going through the Young Global Leaders program as well, not just from a political perspective, right? So it's where you do the networking, you know. Ordinarily,
it's like a giant frat party. That's where you become all buddy, and they seek the individuals. I
think it's more like an indoctrination for a cult.
Yeah,
yes, it is cult.
Really is.
It's cult-like.
It's a cult, isn't it, Eddie?
It is, and you know, this should never be allowed in a free country, that your leaders are aligning themselves with a foreign entity, non-elected entity, and pledging allegiance to somebody outside of your nation. I mean, that is at worst treasonous, in my opinion. At best, it's just irresponsible. It's disgusting that our people think that that's okay. It's certainly not for your interest and my interest. It's for an interest outside of our own country, and we don't benefit from it at all.
And these people, like, are they not normal human beings? I mean, like when they, you know, I did a story about how our health officials are going to start PCR testing cows. You know, they're going to go after the livestock, going to go after the farms, because the cows might have some sort of ridiculous bird flu. So what does that mean? You cull all the cows and the government wants to go on the farms, right? And so my friend that I was interviewing, it was Gord from Bright Lights News. He said to me, he's like, maybe lizard people are a real thing. You know, maybe they don't eat, you know. Can I just get your thoughts on just briefly on that? Like, have you heard about them trying to piece the H5N1 bird flu nonsense?
Well, we know the PCR test is completely flawed. So they can invent anything that they like using that. So think about it. Here we are again, just like we were 4 years ago in an American election. And what are they trying to ramp up? Another contagion, another possible pandemic. And what a better way to sculpt it than using the PCR test and eliminate a large portion of our food supply. And what does that do? It creates scarcity. And what happens when you have scarcity within your country? You have anarchy because people don't have food. And then what happens? You turn into a police state. And, you know, the government and the police turn on the people. So
Yeah.
I think it's a deliberate plan for complete control.
Right. Yeah, actually, let's see here what some people are saying in the comments. Whale of beef. You know what? I don't have my glasses. I can't read it. When Canadians react in mass to the physical harms of forced medical experiment, science fraud, then politicians begin fighting to fend off lawful injustices. Okay, Lynn says, Polyev will buy us some time, but he is no different than Trudeau. We must destroy the party system. Wow. This, and then she also says money going to the Trudeau Foundation. Yeah, and I'm just glad we're bringing awareness to that, and I hope that people have caught on. You know, we don't want another, bloody, pandemic to go through, and I just don't think that people are going to fall for that again. But anyway, moving on. Okay, now it's been a week now. It's Thursday. So it was last week that we saw the Biden-Trump debate, and it was so funny how everything kicked off with the Toronto St. Paul thing in Canada, where people are like, okay, we have had enough. And then boom, the debate happens, and all the media, the mainstream media, everybody is like, we have had enough of Biden. He is obviously not fit. I mean, there's nothing we can say that hasn't been said before, but what were your thoughts when you saw that debate?
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, you know, I was obviously disappointed. I don't feel like Trump was adequately prepared for that. I think Biden did better than what I actually expected.
Okay,
I actually did. Yeah, I know. Well, no, because I was expecting a lot worse. And what my feeling was is they must have, it's like a boxer or a professional fighter. You know, they in their training for the fight, they peak right at the moment of the fight. And I think they prepared Biden to peak in terms of his mental acuity right at the moment of the thing. And that's the best that you got from him. And it was not very good.
It was not very good. Better at the end, but you think the best in the beginning.
Could I add something to that?
Sure. Yeah.
I think Trump was tactically smart, and it wasn't Trump's best performance, I don't think. But what they tried to do was provoke him to become bombastic and go on the attack. I think he showed great caution. Now, I'm of the mind that possibly Biden had an earpiece in, and he actually looked to me like he fell asleep during the debate. And like Tom said, he really did. I'm not sure if he pooped his pants once, but I heard that he might have, so I don't know. I think he was being fed questions through the earpiece, and he was reading something down on his notes. And remember, they drug tested them before the event. So, and like Tom said, I think he did better than some, public appearances that I've seen, Biden. And, but I think it was a devastating blow. And when you saw all the cronies in the Democrat Party come out in the day after and the day following, as well as the media saying, this man has never been sharper. He's sharp as a tack. And they're all, repeating the same line, sharp as a tack.
Yeah.
And we all saw what happened.
He's so sharp behind the scenes. Let me tell you something. I forgot the debate was happening, and so someone texted me and said, "Put it on," and I put it on, and this was the moment I thought it was over. I'll show you this.
Okay.
Folks, how are you? Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare, providing housing for Black Americans. The impact on the choice, the idea that they're gonna, I'm proposing that the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I've not raised the cost of Social Security for anybody. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. And wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies.
Oh my God, it's painful. Wasn't that painful?
Oh my
To
God.
watch
It was.
yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't actually see an earpiece there, but it's okay to get old. It's okay to be frail. It's time to go. Time to go. And now everybody's calling for that now. I guess I was going to say when he walked out, that like right when he walked out and started extending his hand to nobody, I was like, oh my gosh, And
Yeah.
so it's time to go. And everybody is saying that. And Trump didn't even have to do anything to win. He just had to stand there. But I thought he made great points. There was a part where they were talking about abortion, and then Biden's answer started morphing into border control and rape and stuff like that. It was just insane. But again, I asked you about Canada. Who could lead the Liberal Party next in Canada? Tom or Eddie, whoever. Who do you think could be the next leader of the Democratic Party in the States?
I think they're going to swing in Gavin Newsom. I think they're going to put forward Kamala Harris, but I think she'll step out at some point. But I think Gavin Newsom is the man to watch.
Yeah, they want him. And I think, Kamala on paper is everything you want, a woman of color, blah, blah, blah. But every time I hear her speak, it sounds like she's just had 3 martinis. I feel like that about her. Nobody likes her. And I find it hilarious. Her name never comes up. Nobody's like, oh yeah, Kamala Harris is going to step right in, because people can see that she doesn't have anything between the ears, right? Then there's Gavin Newsom. And is that it? Like, Tom, like, who do you think? Like, why is the pool so small?
Well, there's been a lot of talk, and I've had the pleasure of speaking to Roger Stone, who's a longtime 40-year friend of President Trump. And I talked to him months ago, and his belief was that it would be Michelle Obama would be the Democratic nominee. And, to look at this whole convention, and I think it was Kian Bexley who actually looked at the past history of all of the presidential debates. And he posted them on Twitter and, listed each of the debates in order. And historically, the debates for the president were always after the nominating conventions. So technically, each party has not nominated their leader, but yet they were having a presidential debate, which was, from what I understand, the Democrats said it's a condition of having the debate. They want it now in June, not after the convention. Because I think, I mean, right away, the next day, everybody was saying this entire thing was a setup. And everybody with 2 brain cells to rub together could see right through it, that this is a way to justify to the American people to, for the first time in their history, remove a sitting president as the nominee for the party.
Yeah.
Right. And so now they needed a justification. And they gave themselves that, and everybody sees through it, right? They weren't honest about it. They were manipulative to the American public, which is great. Now, to go back to one of the points that Eddie made a lot sooner about, I want Trudeau to be there till the bitter end. If I was President Trump, I would want Biden there to the bitter end. I wouldn't be talking about stories of them saying, oh, it was a setup to dump Biden. I'd be like, Biden was the greatest candidate. We had a strong debate. I think he's a great president right now. I'd be doing everything to counter that narrative to say that Biden is incompetent, because I would want to go up against Biden, because I'll tell you,
right,
that performance that I saw from President Trump and also Biden, I can tell you right now that if somebody like Robert Kennedy or Gavin Newsom had been on that stage, he would have wiped the floor with both of them. And that doesn't go well. That doesn't go well for President Trump.
Right. You think Gavin is brighter than Trump, or he'll be a faster thinker?
He'll be faster thinker. He'll be better prepared. And the reason he'll be better prepared, because one, he's got the time. He's got the staff to get him. He's a lawyer. He understands how to debate. He's a politician. He's articulate.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Say what you want about President Trump.
People are onto him. People don't like him. One comment here.
No, he's not very likable.
No.
Yeah, Newsom has destroyed California. Boy, has he ever. People living under bridges. The economy is awful there. Yeah.
And he's also Nancy Pelosi's nephew.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, what about like Buttigieg? I don't even know anything about him. I mean, and Gretchen Whitmore, some of these people, but they're such like non-starters, eh?
No chance.
For her, no chance, no chance. So Biden, my goodness, the election's November, the U.S. election, November 2024, right? This year. We don't have long to go. And again, like Polyev, this story has been written. It's going to be Trump. So do you trust Trump? My partner doesn't trust him because he was all behind Operation Warp Speed.
My feeling with that is it's a mistake for the Trump campaign right now. In my view, to hold on to Warp Speed, Operation Warp Speed, which is rollout. What I think would be more logical, I'm not an American expert in politics by any means, but it makes no sense to hold on to Operation Warp Speed as something that you can say you did a great thing. Okay. I think the conversation has to change now for President Trump to say, you know what, I got bad advice. I listen to people, you know, and when I'm in there, I'm going to start looking at investigating Fauci. You know what I mean? And start cleaning up all the mess, because I got really, really bad advice. You know, it's a swamp, and he can go back to that sort of storyline if he
Trump
wants.
Could say that, yeah,
he could say that, but I think it's a critical mistake to do that. And now I saw another meme, and I'll bring this up because it really goes to what we were talking about with Ukraine as well. I saw a meme on Twitter that said the winner of last night's debate. It was a Twitter poll, but it was a meme, and it said the winner of last night's debate was Israel and Israel, which I thought was pretty funny, right? Because I mean, the fact of the matter is you don't get elected to the Oval Office. There's 54 million evangelical votes in the United States that are Jewish votes. Okay, you're not getting elected to the Oval Office if you're not pro Israel. That's just a fact.
So that is why Vivek Ramaswamy, RFK, that is why all of them, they don't talk up against it, do they?
Well, if you look at especially RFK, he has publicly said, because he got into a little trouble, that he got accused of being anti-Semitic, and he pulled back and said, if I am elected president, I will be the greatest friend to Israel that Israel has ever known as the president of the United States, right? I'm sorry, but I want you to just be the president or the prime minister of your own bloody country. I don't want you being, like stick to your own country. Okay.
Right. Like there's let the Middle East fix the Middle East. I mean, there's other countries that could, like Saudi Arabia or the UAE or whatever. Why does Canada and whoever have to fix that? Right.
Well, 16 or 18% of the entire Israeli Defense Forces budget is paid for by the American taxpayers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we lost Eddie for a second, but it's just me and you here for now.
I'm still here. I just lost my video for a second.
Oh, okay. Not to worry.
I'll be right there.
Yeah, we'll carry on. Okay. One thing I want to say, just with you and me, Tom. Oh, we lost.
He'll come back.
Yeah, he'll come back. It'll be good. I'll just go back to me here. Okay. So, oops, here we go. Here's what I wanted to say. One thing about the debates in the US with Biden, we have known for a very long time that Hunter Biden is up to whatever. He is up to no good. Oh, we got Eddie back. Yeah. So I never hear this reported too much in the mainstream. But it was Megyn Kelly who interviewed this representative named Wesley Hunt. And he talked about, I don't know if you know about this, but Burisma, how Hunter Biden sits on the board of Ukrainian oil companies, right? And shell companies. And there was some Russian oligarch, not Russian, I'll take this back, but somebody from either Ukraine, it was Ukraine, gave him, Hunter Biden, $3 million to one of his companies. And then within the laptop, it says, don't forget, 10% goes to the big guy. Who's the big guy? Biden.
That goes back to 2014.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Bidens have had their hands in Ukraine for, longer than a decade, and along with Hillary Clinton and all the, all of the rest of the Democrats, it's been a money laundering country for a very long time.
Right. And what do they think? We don't know this? Like that this isn't going to come out? But you know what? It doesn't seem to matter. They get elected. They don't have to talk about it. Whatever they don't want to talk about, they can just ignore. We're so tired of that as the public.
Well, they're counting on, like you said, your friends or your colleagues that didn't even know who Chrystia Freeland is.
No.
They're counting on the vast majority of Canadians to have that level of apathy and ignorance about the governance that they're falling prey to. And that's what they count on.
That's what they count on. There's plenty of those people because I know these people. Because when I worked at, after I got fired, I worked at a car dealership briefly. And then I was talking about the convoy a little with some of what I call the normies. And I was talking about how people's bank accounts were frozen. And some people there were like, oh yeah, I think I heard that might have happened. No clue. No clue. So that's, I guess, the people they're counting on. So, well, Gavin, whoever, we'll see what happens. But one thing about Trump, about Biden, he says, one of the headlines today, Biden rejects stepping down, vows re-election bid. And there's meant to be another debate in September. If you were Trump, would you show up? If you were Biden, would you show up? And why do you even need to?
Well, they have to get through the convention. Oh, we lost your audio, Eddie.
Oh, okay. That's okay. We hear Tom. Yeah.
They've got to get through the nominating convention. Right.
Okay.
And that's coming up for both parties. And so I really just don't think that the Democratic Party is going to nominate Joe Biden. I think they've given him a graceful out. Whether he chooses to take it or not, that's up to him. But at the same time, this whole orchestration by the media, I mean, immediately after the debate, even, CNN, the Clinton News Network, was actually criticizing Biden. Okay. Right. And I mean, they were criticizing both candidates, but it wasn't your typical CNN where it was Democrat great, Republican bad. It was really more of an indictment on the capability of Joe Biden. And so I think my perception of the whole thing, and I think the vast majority of people out there, is that the entire thing was orchestrated to give the Democrats an opportunity to opt out of using Biden, and they're going to put in their best player the nominating convention.
Whoever the heck that is. And it's true because everybody will have this sympathy like, oh, he's old, he's frail, he can't do it. Feel sorry for him. So that'll make a replacement okay, except they just can't find one. And I don't think Michelle Obama is she's not even interested. And why should we have her? I don't even.
She will. I think she'll
It's
run.
quite possible.
That you think she might put her hand up to say, okay, I'll do this, Michelle?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Okay.
I absolutely do.
Well, she better start making some rumblings.
It could be her and Newsom in some kind of arrangement, vice president or president in reverse. Who knows?
Right,
but Biden will not be at the next debate. That's a given.
He won't show up in September, you don't think? Okay.
He'll be out and Kamala will be in by then.
Oh, God. I would.
Hey, we want it. We want Biden, just like we want Trudeau to go to the finish line.
And put Kamala in then if you want, let her debate, and then she will show herself, because she only has 5 sentences she knows how to say anyway. Yeah. Okay, so that we've touched on Canada, we've touched on the US. Let's just briefly touch on the UK. And to be honest, I didn't look into it too much, but I know Eddie did. What was the result, the preliminary result in the UK? Because they had their election today.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty overwhelming victory for the Labour Party over the Tories. So, you know, the final tally will be published tomorrow.
Right.
So it's very interesting. Supposedly the leader is a centrist. He used to be accused of being a leftist, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it was Keir Starmer won. Anybody who watches GB News, and I have friends over there now, Nigel Farage ran, but he didn't make it. And then Richie Sunak is going to be gone. Right?
He'll be
Nobody
gone.
likes him. And then he's probably a WEFer. Same with Boris Johnson, Jacinda Ardern, Emmanuel Macron. When all my normie friends would say to me, oh my God, all this COVID stuff is happening all over the world. These rules are happening. Now you know why. They're all in that, what did you call it? Cult.
They are a cult. And think about it. You know, every one of the Western leaders are all weak men. Weak. And, you know, the weak men are the most dangerous when they're in power.
Okay. Yeah, they are. Okay. Now, speaking of this, there was another comment. Somebody was saying we have to, love you. Oh, this is a nice comment. Yeah. Great reporting. Canada is screwed, they say, if we have to rely on the CAF.
Canadian Armed Forces.
Canadian, So, geez, that doesn't make me feel good. Nobody better come for us. We got to make friends with people. What does this say? Pensions should only be granted to those who fulfill their promises. Somebody said, knock off the homophobic comments. It's not creating solutions. I do want to say that we are not homophobic. We embrace anyone's sexuality. We are getting a bit fed up with it being shoved down our throats and at my kid's school. And, you know, my kid, they come home and their friends are like, aren't there just boys and girls?
Yeah. Well,
when did we make a comment of that nature? I don't remember.
When we were talking about tampons, probably.
Well, you know.
Okay. So I'd like to address that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. Sorry.
Okay. Well, that's fine. That's fine.
It was a joke.
Yes, you know, I show all the comments, good and bad, but he's not coming to the Stampede, so that ain't the kind of cowboy he likes. Okay, here's another comment. Our military consists of 2 canoes and a slingshot? Hey, that's not good. That ain't good. Anyway, before we wrap things up, I do want to ask, we've been through a lot in this country. We do get tired. We fought so hard. I'll never forget that experience of the convoying. And I remember, Tom, you reached out to me. You heard of me getting fired, and I got to meet people like Eddie. I got to meet people I respect and admire so much. I think we all have. I do have a question from one of my friends who says, how can regular folks help? Like, collectively, how do we cause a shift? Like, what is your message to Canadians? I guess I'll start with either one of you. I mean, we protest, we have petitions, but how can what do you think we need to do? Tom, I'll start with you.
Well, first and foremost, I think that the public needs to focus on localism. And to do localism, you need to actually understand how governance actually works. Like, learn about the systems, the policies, procedures, how the entire political system actually works on its own. But I think that everything that's been done to Canadians has been done by the local municipalities. I mean, the police are paid by the municipality or the RCMP in certain jurisdictions, but everything that was done to us during the actual lockdowns and the pandemic, everything that happened locally. It was maybe the federal government or provincial governments that came up with the policies, but everything was executed by the local governments, by the municipalities. So this campaign against the public has been going on for decades and decades. We have to be patient. We have to educate ourselves on how this works. And then we have to really realize that it's going to take a long time to get back a new version of society, one that isn't so corrupted. And the only way to do that is through engagement with your school boards, your local municipalities, building communities, building networks. Okay, so I'll give you a great example. If you've got a school board a position coming up for election, or you've got a municipal election, you've got to overwhelm those seats. So let's say I've got in my ward where I live, I've got a couple of candidates that want to be the thing. No, you go out and you find 9 other people just like you that think the way you do and believe in your values and ethics and principles. And you say, all 10 of us, we're going to run for that one position in the hopes that the numbers matter and we're going to overwhelm it. And one of us are going to get in. We don't care who, but one of our people are going to get in. Okay. And then if you go one level up from that, get involved in the either join a new party. In Ontario, we've got the Ontario Party. That's a new party here. Or get involved in your riding associations for the party that best resonates with your values, and start taking control of the riding associations, because as a riding association member, you have power, you have a vote, you have opportunity within that. And that's something that an organization in Alberta did, Take Back Alberta, and there's a group doing that here in Ontario now, where they're getting involved in all the riding associations and they're dictating the terms because they're showing up to get involved and they're showing up to get votes. That's how Danielle Smith got elected as the Premier of Alberta without actually getting elected as an MLA. Right? So it's really about leading politicians. And we often talk about politicians as being leaders. Well, I'm sorry, but they're representatives. They're supposed to follow what the people want. But if the people don't come together and actually tell the politicians what they need to do, what the will is of the people, then the politicians are going to take full advantage of the public's silence and apathy, and they're going to do what they want to do and put us in the position that they have been for all these years.
That's a very good point. Start small. Because with this whole first past the post thing of how we do things, maybe someone could have a shot of becoming premier if enough people voted in different pockets of the ridings or whatever, right? Something like that. But Eddie, what do you think? I mean, how can we collectively make a shift? What are your thoughts on what regular people can do? Because I know we all want to do something, the people who are awake,
Yeah, that's right. I agree with Tom 100%. That's exactly how you get it done. What people fail to realize is that your municipal governments have the greatest effect on your daily life. Like Tom said, that's the ones that did all of the things during the pandemic. That's a lot of your taxes, the school boards. You need to educate yourself on how those things work. And remember, there's not going to be a quick fix for anything. There's no eureka moment. It's going to be slow and steady, one step at a time, inch at a time, and take action. And a great tactic that Tom had mentioned is overwhelm the elections with like-minded people and get yourself elected. You can get a quorum and you can steer the votes your way and really have a massive effect in your community. And people need to do that instead of sitting on the couch and saying, well, somebody should do something. You should do something. You need to step up and you need to get involved and educate yourself. I'm speaking to everybody that might be listening. You need to hold people accountable for their actions. And you do that by getting involved.
Way to go. I think that's a great message to end on. No more saying, I don't know who Christopher Freeland is. Now you need to know. No more saying, well, who else is there to run for? All we know is Trudeau. No. Educate yourself. It's time. Otherwise, we're going to lose this country, right? So,
Can I add one more thing to this?
For sure.
Just recently, and I put a tweet out today that for some time now, I've been involved in a great company. Actually, the founder, the CEO is in Eddie's neck of the woods, lives pretty close. Great guy, great visionary, great Canadian patriot. He does not like the way that this country is being run or the direction that it's going. And so he decided to do something about it. And he's got a software company and a whole team. And he's decided to divert all the resources to this new social media type of a platform. And I've been involved with it for a little while, and I'm very excited about it. And it's something that I believe in. And I can say this, I've been offered a few times to get involved in these social media projects. And I was kind of like, no, that's not right for me. But the moment I first was presented with this new concept, and there is some blockchain technology involved in it, the moment I got involved in that, I said, I see it right now. It's clear to me. There's potential. And I think it's going to be a great tool for Canadians once it's fully up and running. It's first and foremost, the founder of this company wanted to build community, wanted to build connection, and he wants to build accountability. That's what the blockchain is going to be for. This is how we're going to maximize technology in this country to our advantage as Canadians, to build community, to connect, and to hold people accountable, and for everybody to see what's going on behind the scenes. And if the politicians don't want to respond, everyone's going to see that too. And I'm not going to give away the name.
Don't give it away.
But
let people follow you on X. What's your handle?
It's just at Tom Marazzo, pretty vanilla.
Okay, that's good. Need to keep it simple, and then you'll update people on what's going on when you're ready. But you know what, I would like to also. I don't live stream very often because I always think I'm going to screw it up. But I think that went pretty well because I used to direct live newscasts, for God's sake. And and there's 81 people currently watching us right now. So thank you to everyone who watched and comment. I really appreciate it, and I love hearing from you guys. And my apologies, I didn't actually stream this on Rumble because I did screw something up there, but I'm going to re-upload it over there when it's all said and done. And so to my Rumble followers, I apologize. And I would like to thank Eddie Cornell and Tom Marazzo for joining me today. I hope I can talk to you guys again because there's more news to come. And I really enjoyed you guys making the time, and I really enjoyed talking to you guys today. So thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you guys for watching. We will see you next time.
Okay.
Okay.